In other words, I like, personally, just speaking for myself, I like the idea of a Donald Trump Tulsi Gabbard ticket. Tulsi Gabbard, an Iraq combat veteran, a major general in the U.S. Army Reserve, a championship surfer, a former UFC fighter, a former member of Congress, a former Democrat, now an independent, someone who crushed Kamala Harris in the debates. Now, it would be incumbent on Tulsi to become a Republican.
So Roger Stone, I know everybody needs to know what Roger Stone thinks today on Iowa Caucus Day. Roger Stone is looking past the Iowa caucus, past the primaries, and saying, how about a Donald Trump Tulsi Gabbard ticket? Is he jumping the gun here a little bit? I don't know. I want to get my friend Marc Cox on the show with us. Marc, thanks for taking some of your time here on your holiday off to talk to us a little bit about the Iowa caucus. How's it going?
Oh, great, Annie. Better than the people in Iowa, I guess, where what's it, like 25 below zero out there today?
Yeah, at some point it doesn't matter. It's just that cold. And I think that they've
Oh,
reached
my
that.
gosh.
Do you think that it matters? Is it stupid to have the Iowa caucus be the first one in like polar vortex type of weather that makes it hard for people to vote? Or is this just the way it is?
Well, I don't think we're going to, I don't think that tradition's going to change that rapidly, honestly. It still plays an important role in what people perceive to be reality, and we know that's reality in politics, right?
Yeah.
I mean, other people have won Iowa and gone on to lose the presidential race. This year, everybody seems to be putting all their eggs in this basket. I think Donald Trump's going to win it running away. I don't think that's going to be an issue. There's just so much angst out there over Donald Trump as the candidate that the mainstream media, even a lot of people in the establishment, can't wrap their brains around the fact that Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis combined can't even come up with half of his numbers.
What do you want to see from Donald Trump tonight? What kind of percentage are you saying, yeah, that's adequate, and what kind of percentage are you saying that's the nail in the coffin?
I think he should come out of there with a 25-point win, probably. I would say conservatively a 25-point win. And if he does, look ahead, look at Real Clear Politics. I mean, I looked at just before we went on, Donald Trump's got a 30-point lead in South Carolina. I mean, that's where Nikki Haley's home state is. So what my question would be to some of the folks I heard on Fox News Radio earlier when I was out driving around, lamenting the fact that Nikki Haley has not gained more ground than she has.
Mm-hmm.
She's not even winning in her home state.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not comparing her to Kamala Harris because I think she's much more accomplished and on the ball than Kamala Harris. But, at some point you got to read the tea leaves here. I know she desperately wants to be president, but at this point, I don't think that's going to happen. And I don't think she's going to even be a viable vice presidential candidate. I don't think he's got her in mind.
Yeah, I agree with that. She's run herself so much as an alternative to Donald Trump in all of the ways that she's very different than him, that it would be very complicated to convince his. I don't think that anyone who's going to support Donald Trump is going to not vote for Trump because Nikki Haley is the vice president at this point on that ticket. But it just doesn't seem like that it would add the people that they would want to see added. Our poll today is what percentage should a candidate get to stay in the race after the Iowa caucus, 20, 30, 40%, or it doesn't matter. Are you looking is there a threshold in your mind to stay in and keep going past Iowa for some of these other candidates?
I think the only threshold is who's dumb enough to keep giving you money to keep your campaign going if you're that far behind. I mean, let's say you're still polling at 20% and Donald Trump's still at 50%. Those are long odds. It shows you just, again, I get back to how desperate the establishment is, the Bush wing of the Republican Party, to keep Nikki Haley there as some sort of a safe stopgap measure, just in case Donald Trump gets convicted in one of these ridiculous trials they've got going against him. I don't know. I don't think you can put a number on it, to be honest with you. I thought it was interesting that they brought up Tulsi Gabbard. I'll be real honest with you. That's the first time I've heard her name mentioned. I hadn't even considered that possibility.
What do you think of it?
I don't know. I mean, she's come around a lot. I think she's been disgusted by her own party, which is why she left it. and I think that's encouraging to me. Strategically, would it increase his opportunity to pick up a lot of the independent vote? I think, yeah, but I think a lot of people would be suspicious because let's put it this way: whoever becomes his vice president, if he gets elected, is queued up to be president for the next 8 years. And I don't think a lot of Republicans would be comfortable with that. I think Kristi Noem or someone like that would maybe even Tim Scott would be a much better choice.
I love Tim Scott. Tim Scott, I
Yeah.
think, is just made for that kind of position, and he's such a positive antidote to the negativity that surrounds Donald Trump. I think he would be a really interesting candidate on that vice presidential part of the ticket. Do you feel like the Republican Party right now is more segmented than it's ever been before? Like, how do you feel about the health of the entire Republican Party?
Yeah, I worry about that because there's so many never Trumpers in the Republican Party. I don't know who these people are. I don't know how you could not look at what the options are right now and not see how much better things were under Donald Trump. There's no reason to think that that wouldn't happen again if he got reelected. You know, when I look at the Liz Cheneys of the world and the Adam Kinzingers on CNN every night, I'm scratching my head. I don't know who those people are. So the Republican Party is probably as fractured as I've ever seen it, for sure. I thought it was interesting. I saw a Gallup poll today that a record number of people identify now as independents. It matches a record. It was like 40. I forget what the number was. But it was a record number of people as independents, and the people identify as Democrats has fallen to its lowest point since 2014, I think it was.
Wow.
And I think all of that bodes well for Trump if he gets the nomination, because I think those independents will decide this race. And I don't think any of them look at the economy or interest rates or any of that. And I don't think any of them view that favorably.
Mm. We're speaking with Marc Cox of the Marc Cox Morning Show. You can hear him from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. right here on 97.1 FM Talk. I feel like that division is pretty deep. I feel like when the question is posed to the American people, where it's just this or that, right now you can kind of take your flavor of the Republican that you like because the options are still there for people. But once it gets down to this or that, Republican or Democrat, we could talk about the possibility of an independent making a viable run for the presidency. I do look at Donald Trump. You talked about the never Trumpers. I was talking to some friends this weekend who they are very frustrated with the way Donald Trump handles situations. It is true that Donald Trump can be mean. Like, that is part of his game. And I'm going to tell you, I don't really like it when he does that. I think some people would say that's because I'm a woman. I think that's sexist, but maybe it's also true. I don't know. But Donald Trump could help himself a little bit in his tone and his approach. I don't really have any reason to believe that he's going to change anything. But that's, I think, what frustrates people the most, that there's an opportunity for growth for Donald Trump in the way he approaches things to win more people over, not necessarily to win the individual over, but the people who that person is talking to, that would make Donald Trump more palatable for voters out there.
Oh, yeah. No, I thought that all along. I have fewer mean tweets and paying more attention to looking forward will benefit him when he gets certainly into this general election. Jokingly the other day, I shared the interview with Rand Paul. Did you see that on Friday, where he came out and announced that he was nevernikki.com?
Yeah.
He wanted people to go to that website. Yeah. And I joked and I said, I'm glad that Rand Paul's come along to my side, which is Never Nikki. And some of the feedback I got surprised me. Somebody said, well, what if it's Nikki and versus Biden? And I'm like, that's not the issue. I'm talking about in the primary. I could never support Nikki in the primary. But if she ended up being the candidate versus Joe Biden, of course I would vote for her. Of course, I mean, I voted for Mitt Romney, for God's sake. Of course I would. That's even he would be better than Joe Biden. You know, I mean, yeah, that's not what I meant. I'm in the primary. That's kind of how I felt.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to actually getting some results. We got to run here, but the idea that we're going to have some numbers and not just polls.
Right.
15, 20 seconds left for you, Mark. Any predictions for tonight before we wrap up here?
Yeah, I think this marks the beginning of the end for Ron DeSantis, no doubt about it. my guess is Nikki Haley maybe pulls 20%, and I say Trump's in the 50s.
God, if he gets in the 50s, man, he's going to have, like I said, the facts, the numbers, the evidence behind what the polls have been saying. And then I think the ending is very near. Mark, thank you for the time today.
You
We
bet.
appreciate you.
Great to see you, Annie. Thank you.
You as well.